Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Roll Call Podcast. I'm Joe McGuire along with Dominic Zappone. It's been a hot minute since we've done this podcast, and with good reason. The New York Yankees have been terrible this season. And on top of that, Dom, let me tell you, my ability to watch the Yankees, which I would still willingly do each and every evening, has been greatly impacted by a cable battle in Connecticut. The other thing is any package I attempt to buy or stream, I generally get hit with an out of market blackout. So it's been very difficult. I watch the Yankees where I can. I've studied this team and I follow them very closely. Despite I do catch them on the radio a lot more, which is awfully cool. But here's the thing about this team that has them in the position that they're currently in. And I pay particular attention to the box scores because a lot of the times I'm reading the read up on the games and I study the box score. I want to see what's going on. It is so rare that anybody has two hits. I think I could count on one hand the amount of multiple hit games that some of these guys have had this season. It feels like every night, most of these guys are 0 for 4, and you got a handful of guys that are 1 for 4. It's generally a home run or two, and you lose. The Yankees last week became the third team since 1901 to have 4 games in a 10-game span with less than 2 hits. This is not a bad offensive team, and yet, Dom, this team's been as productive as the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that have gone wrong here. I mean, you can put the blame on whoever you want, Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, Hal Steinbrenner. They've all done bad jobs. I mean, Cashman over his tenure has been very good, but these past few years, he's just been making the wrong moves, and it's really shown this year. That's for sure.
So let's talk about that, and let's be fair about this, because I hear a lot of argument about, and look, the roster is 100% on Brian Cashman. He's had full autonomy on this team for many years now, and he's completely shaped this roster. And I like Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton's missed so much time again this year. He's been banged up. His batting average is in the low, barely over the Mendoza line at this point. And yeah, you look at the power numbers, they're as good as Gleyber Torres, who's been in there every single day and is supposedly having himself a great year. And by the way, yesterday, another great example of what I'm talking about. I like Gleyber Torres, the hitter, and if Giancarlo Stanton didn't exist, and you lived in a world where you could make Giancarlo Stanton a full-time designated hitter, you would be getting the best out of Gleyber Torres. He's atrocious in the field. DJ LeMahieu is a Gold Glove winning second baseman, and so many dopey idiot Yankee fans, Gleyber at second. He was terrible at second, got moved to short, and we thought his natural position, this should work out. He was worse. So you put him back at second and move a Gold Glover. Hey, let's play DJ at third. You want to know what happens when you play multiple guys out of position? Ask the San Diego Padres, because that's the problem they have. They've got a shortstop in right field, the second baseman playing first base. You wonder why your things aren't panning out in San Diego? It's the same thing here. The Yankees have not optimized anything this entire year. Again, right, we went into the offseason knowing that Aaron Hicks, it had to end. That had to stop. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. You were going to eat the money eventually. You did anyway. At a curious time for the Yankees, leaving a gaping hole in your every... I mean, that was one of the stupidest things Brian Cashman has ever done. Maybe short of actually signing that contract in the first place, which, I will say this, it was a good contract when he signed it. If Aaron Hicks had been a 240, 25 home run guy for the last 7 seasons at $10 million a year, that would have been one of the best contracts in baseball history. Unfortunately, the guy was completely inept. I mean, to a shocking degree. And then because Yankee fans are so unsupportive, you saw how it eventually bled into he couldn't defend, his base running wasn't, I mean, nothing he did was good. So that Brian Cashman makes the moves that, again, in the moment, getting Stanton, I remember thinking, we already have Judge. What? Okay. He went out and got Gallo and Rizzo. That was the right move. I mean, the two best left-handed bats available. He went out and got Sonny Gray a couple of years ago. It's not like this guy hasn't made moves, but everything he does has not panned out. And every guy who's had health issues that he's banked on has failed him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it at the beginning of the season, even last year, we knew we were coming into the season without a left fielder. And I know they really wanted to bank on Aaron Hicks, give him one more shot, but it's like, listen, we've gone down this path multiple times the past few years. The guy can't stay healthy, and when he is healthy, he's just not producing. And I mean, you want to have that switch hitter in there, he has a good eye. You want to like see if you can get something going, but I mean, putting him 3, 4, even down in the order, it's just like, yeah, you want that lefty in there, but he's not producing like most of the team right now. So I mean, that was a tough start coming in without a left fielder.
You know, yesterday the Yankees had a chance to get within 2 games under 500 heading into a series with the Astros that looks a little daunting at this point. I mean, the Yankees are 18 and a half out of the division, 10 and a half out of that last wild card spot. This was their first series win since beating the Royals July 21st through the 23rd. Every other major league team, including the Oakland Athletics, have won at least 2 series since that time. I mean, that's just a mind-boggling stat to think that this team, Brian Cashman earlier this week referred to this as a lost season. And I thought, this is worse than that. This has been one of the most inept teams I've ever seen in my life. When you look at, again, look at the Oakland A's, they're trash. And they don't really have a lot of talent on that baseball team. The Yankees are trotting out former MVPs and batting title winners and all-stars and legends from other places in the country, all around the diamond. And this is all they could muster up. And I find that to be, it's hard to even fathom how bad this season. I knew the Yankees were not going to do well, and I figured it was going to be a battle with Boston for the bottom, and that was just me being honest. They got off to a great start last year. I wasn't buying it. The fundamentals, it was nice. The defense was tight. And then eventually, right, Josh Donaldson got to the point where he was so awful. I mean, him and Aaron Hicks what kills me, Dom? Because I defended these guys for as long as I possibly could. And I thought, look, I don't think you forget how to hit. You're an all-star caliber player, and then all of a sudden you can't hit over 200. What's going on there? And what does that say about the Yankees' development of players? I think it is, you look at a Gary Sanchez, you're going to look at Gleyber Torres, who was on the precipice of superstardom.
Yeah, I mean, he was a top 5 prospect in baseball when we were calling him up. He was supposed to be up there with the Acuñas and Sotos of the league. And I mean, right when he got started, it looked pretty good, but and he's been a solid hitter throughout his career. You mentioned he was pretty rough in the field, which I definitely agree. But he has been one of our best hitters this year for sure. And he kind of the last couple of years, he was kind of up and down, but he's having a good year this year. But man, their development. I know the past few weeks, some minor leaguers have come out and said, the way that they develop down there, the way that they teach hitting, it's different. It's not like old school. It's just hit the ball hard. That's it. Hit the ball hard, strikes, see pitches. And yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but I mean, you got to teach the fundamentals of the game. That's what they're down there for. That's what the minor leagues are for. It's teaching the game. Like these guys come in and they're already super talented. Obviously, they could get better, but you got to teach them the game. That's the whole thing.
It's funny what you just said about what some of these former minor leaguers have said about they just want you to hit the ball hard, because if you listen to Booney and Cashman, when a guy's hitting 202, they'll say something like, yeah, but he's hitting the ball really hard. And it's like, but at people or
Yeah.
high up in the air, or he's hitting everything into the ground, right? Like, I don't understand that philosophy. And I can't, like, it one of the other things that I thought was super interesting, how Steinbrenner said they're going to, reevaluate the analytics department as well and maybe bring in an outside company. Well, clearly, because your analytics department sucks. And I
Yeah.
think any analytics department that thought you needed to load up on low batting average, high strikeout, sometimes home run guys, wait, like you guys sat around like you planned that out. That was the plan. That was the plan, because if that was the plan, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And again, you could believe it because of the idea that Brian Cashman's been obsessed with the idea of trying to tighten up the defense, which has been a big problem for the Yankees for a really long time. And I'm going to say something sacrilegious here. Derek Jeter was not a rangy shortstop. He had a limited range guy. And obviously things worked out. And I think the Yankees think there's something to that formula. But, if Josh Donaldson did nothing else, he definitely upgraded the Yankees defense. And I know there's still the Gio Urshela fans of the world. His metrics are terrible.
Yeah. He made the
You and I have
flashy
talked
plays.
about this. The metrics
Yeah.
are terrible on Gio Urshela. He makes great flashy plays and he makes them look easy, but he's
Yeah.
no Greg
And
Nettles, not even
yeah.
close.
Oh no. Yeah. And I mean, he had a good year this year. He definitely had a better year than Donaldson. I'll say that. Donaldson was definitely an upgrade defensively. I will say. Gio made all the flashy plays, and he hit the ball for contact. But at the time, that trade, that big Josh Donaldson trade, it was shocking for sure. It was like, okay, maybe this could work. But then again, it's just like going back to the same thing, acquiring an old MVP who's a shell of himself, who just he can't hang anymore, can't hit his weight. And I mean, it's worked out the same. The Yankees are not that athletic. They don't put the ball in play a lot. It's just a home run, strikeout, and that formula doesn't work when it's the entire lineup's philosophy.
Yeah, it's funny because this guy, Aaron Judge, personifies what you just said.
Yeah,
Aaron Judge is not a high average guy. He hit 309 last year, but he's typically a 260, 270-ish kind of hitter.
right.
He'll make up for it by hitting 40, 50, 60 home runs. That's nice. When you're not hitting 35 or 45 home runs, if you're hitting 25 home runs and you're batting 220, 230, that's where and you had a lineup full of that. But Aaron Judge is, to me, the exception to the rule of the guy who could really survive. He can strike out a whole lot of times and hit a whole lot of home runs. He still gets his base hit, still comes up clutch in big moments. But Aaron Judge, I hate to say this because of how this team dicked around with him over that contract last year and then into the offseason, where they ended up paying infinitely more because, again, Brian Cashman is an idiot. That was so poorly planned. They should have done right by Aaron Judge before the season, and I still think he would have done 62 home runs and all that. So that ended up being silly. Now, the other guy who deserves his flowers, as the kids say today, Dom, is Garrett Cole, who 21 starts this season, 2 runs or fewer allowed, the most in baseball. He's been absolutely phenomenal. He's only lost 1 game after a Yankee loss. He's been what an ace should be. He's pitched as well as anybody in baseball by a lot, consistently has given the Yankees everything that they've needed. So kudos to Garrett Cole, who very well could be winning his first Cy Young award and is the silver lining, I suppose, on an otherwise really disappointing season.
That bug's trying to get up your nose.
Right in my face. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to Garrett Cole. I mean, he's been one of the very few bright spots this season. Of course, he's having his potential Cy Young season this year, and how shitty this year has been for us. He's been great. He's been everything we asked. I mean, he's been worth the money. He is a true ace, and he goes out there and gets it done pretty much every single time he's out there. And the run support he's been getting has not been good. Obviously, that win-loss record. I mean, it doesn't mean as much as it used to, but it still counts for something. I mean, he's getting no run support. He's doing everything he can out there. He's putting up a great season, and he's been really it. Him and Judge. I mean, Judge missed 2 months, and I mean, as soon as Judge got hurt, I mean, the Yankees just fell off.
Oh,
they just completely fell off. Yeah,
it was so bad. But I think back to, when Aaron Judge goes well, if there's another guy in that lineup that can offer him any sort of protection, as long as Aaron Judge gets some fastballs to hit, he's gonna do really well. And him being out of the lineup again showed you how inept the rest of this and how badly underperforming this whole lineup was, particularly Giancarlo Stanton, who, like I said, if you look at the power numbers in the limited action, pretty good, kind of like Josh Donaldson. 10 home runs somehow on 15 hits and over 120 at bats or whatever it was. Crazy. These guys can hit the ball a long way. But like I said, if you're not hitting 40 home runs, 205 is a problem.
Yeah. And I mean,
it really is. Ultimately, that's really what it boils down to. Now, another guy I'm very excited about. Anthony Volpe, who probably in May should have gone to the minor leagues for a couple weeks, if we're being fair.
Yeah,
Things were not going well.
Yeah,
things were not going well. They just weren't. And, again, kudos to this kid for it. They stuck with it. They let him play every day. They let him play through it. He's looked great in the second half of this season. Obviously becomes the first Yankee rookie in history to go 2020. We know this kid's got, and what a shame too. Yesterday the game tying home run, only to go off and lose that game. Volpe's 11th home run with men on base this season. That leads the Yankees, and it's tied with Xander Bogaerts for the most among shortstops in all of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, he has been another bright spot, one of the few again, but I'm glad they stuck with him. Going into the season, I was honestly a little surprised they gave it to him right away. I really thought it was going to be Peraza's job, but I'm happy they gave it to him. I'm happy they stuck with him. You look at his numbers, the average, the OPS, and all that stuff, and it doesn't jump out at you. But then you really get down to the home runs, the stolen bases. Defensively, he's been one of the best shortstops in baseball, and everybody was, I know, ragging on him about his arm strength and everything like that. He's held his own at shortstop. I'm very happy with his defense there. And especially recently, he's been hitting the ball a lot better. That 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, that's a great accomplishment. I'm very excited to see what he could do next year with all these other young kids coming up too.
I can't remember this season offhand, but Derek Jeter had that year where he was hitting a $190 at the end of May. And by season's end, I want to say he finished around 270, which for Derek Jeter wasn't great, but to go 80 points in 3 months is a testament to turning a season around. And I'll tell you again, I think this kid long term, you got to feel good because the Yankees just aren't pushing these guys out to the bigs anymore and having a great amount of success. And so it's good to see that. Now, the news gets a little bit better. Obviously, you referred already to Peraza, but Everson Pereira is also up. Oswaldo Cabrera is playing every day as it is. Throw in Volpe, a throw in Judge. That's 7 of 9 when you add in the possible addition of these two. Austin Wells and Jasson Dominguez, a.k.a. the Martian. These two are being added to the roster today. And there's no reason why you shouldn't. You need another outfield. Well, you need a center fielder because Harrison Bader, by the way, is now a Cincinnati Red. Congratulations to him. And Josh Donaldson off to Milwaukee. Signed a minor league contract. My understanding is he'll be on the major league roster, though, by the end of next week. So that's definitely going to happen.
Brewers are coming to the town next week, too.
Oh, so awesome.
Look
out forward
for
to that.
Donaldson home run. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're talking catcher, outfielder, second baseman, third baseman, shortstop, right field. Obviously, Stanton is your DH. So there's 8 of 9 in your starting lineup, which only leaves first base open here from just this group of guys. So already, just looking at this, you feel like if these guys can all live up to what they're supposed to be, which, let's go back a few years, Austin Wells and Dominguez, that was Judge and Sanchez.
Yep.
One of them developed, one of them did not. Let's look at Clint Frazier, Gleyber Torres, all right? Miguel Andujar. There's Pereira, Peraza, Cabrera. There you go. How did the Yankees fare with those three? 0 for 3 on that list. So again, you're hoping for some more success. Judge is your guy. I mean, look, he's the jewel of your franchise. He's a homegrown drafted player, right? He's everything that the Yankees need the rest of this lineup to become. Plain and simple. And to me, look, I think DJ LeMahieu still has value. You and I talked about this the other day, and so we'll share look, he's been hurt. He's got a foot issue. His balance is problematic. Clearly, he's turning it around. You saw this week, the power's back. He's looked pretty phenomenal. I think there's still a place for this guy, and I think that 300, 320, 330 bat is still there. And I think a healthy DJ, again, with this young crew, I think this team can start to develop. This is something they probably should have done a couple of years ago. This is something that, in 2014, when the Yankees cut A-Rod, they brought up Gary Sanchez, 2015. He hits the 20 home runs in 49 games. Judge comes up, and everything just, and we thought all those guys were going to develop. And so here's a chance for the Yankees to sort of reset. You let Bader go. Donaldson's gone. You're opening up spots. None of these guys are under contract for next season. And so the one thing I think that's still bugging me is, where is Esteban Florial in all this? And how is this guy still not getting a shot at all? I find that shocking. And again, people will say, well, every time he doesn't play when he gets called up. He sits on the bench. He goes 0 for 5 and he goes home. And it's like, he didn't do anything. He didn't play. So it makes no sense. So he's never had a chance. And I still, to this day, I don't know why that is. And for months, Frankie Cordero and Jake Bowers and Billy McKinney,
all those.
You think they're better than Esteban Florial? Like in what planet? Like, how bad of a hitter? But you look at the numbers Florial's put up in the minors this year, phenomenal.
940 OPS, hitting for power, getting on base, stealing bags, plays good defense.
People will say he's the quintessential quadruple A player. And I'll say to that, well, what the hell is Billy McKinney? He's a fringe major leaguer.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a quintessential quadruple A, whatever. That's stupidity at its finest. I don't understand what's going on there. If there's some personality I don't know what it is, but I'll never really understand that one. As for the rest of this team, Carlos Rodon, obviously, it's funny. A few weeks back, I was on another podcast and we were talking about the Yankees. And I said, look, if Rodon comes back, his first 6 starts, he's, and I'm thinking maybe throws 5-6 innings, nothing too crazy. But if the Yankees can go 5-1 in his first 6 starts, I think this team can turn things around. And I think they lost his first 6 starts and badly, and he looked awful in them. Last year in 710 at-bats, he allowed 12 home runs. And if you're like, wow, he gives up a lot, 10 in 147 batters this year. Yeah, so about every 15th batter he faces goes yard.
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine next year. I hope he's able to go here the rest of the season just to get some work in. But, look, him and Garrett Cole, it's a great one too. Clark Schmidt has done a nice job developing as a starter. I think he's only going to get better. So there's 3 starters.
Yeah.
So look, my concern is this team going to be good enough next year to compete, or are the Yankees fighting for the Red Sox for 4th place next season? Because Tampa, Baltimore, and Toronto have done an exceptional job of developing talent at the minor league level, bringing it to the major leagues, giving it more time to develop chemistry and get really good. And then they supplement that with shrewd trades and good free agent signings. It's a formula that the Yankees actually used to employ in the late 90s. It's the reason why they won all of those championships. That was the only reason. And the only purchased championship the Yankees have had in my lifetime came in 2009, and that came out of desperation. And they spent about $250 million to get there.
Probably more than that, yeah. And I mean, yeah, back to the 90s, Cashman was handed that dynasty. I mean, he didn't develop those guys. He didn't go out and draft those guys. He was handed that. So I mean, if you really want to get down to it, he's got that one championship in 2009, and we haven't been back since. And going back to 2016 when Gary Sanchez came up and Judge and Tyler Austin and all them, and 2017 season, obviously the Astros cheated and that sucks, blah blah blah. It happened, but it was starting to really look like we found our cornerstone guys, our new core 4, if you really wanted to go there. And Brian Cashman tried to supplement the pieces on the roster, and he hasn't been able to. And now we're kind of right back in that spot again. I was very surprised they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. I saw reports that Hal Steinbrenner was the one that didn't want to trade anybody. Who knows if that's the truth or not? But I mean, doing nothing was crazy. I mean, you could have picked a direction.
Did you see the statement he made yesterday? He said that. He said, over the last few years, we've traded away too many guys. And to that, I say, who are you referring to? Who did you trade that's so good? Most of the garbage that the prospects the Yankees have traded over the last few years have also been garbage and have not developed into everyday major league players. So there's definitely a problem with the New York Yankees, and they do have to get it figured out. Is this team going to suddenly get super competitive and win 100 games? I don't know. I don't know that the Yankees have this next season either. So I think Yankee fans should temper their expectations. I think there's still people that are like, maybe we'll make a wild card. Like, I think there's people that still think that that's a possibility. And I think you'll be pleasantly disappointed after this weekend series with the Houston Astros, where and Carlos Rodon, by the way, goes tonight, which I like. the Yankees get swept, that's you'll literally hear the nails going into the coffin. I mean, it's pretty much done. This is a big one, and this is where a Yankee team of the past, Dom, would have gone in here and they would sweep Houston, and you'd be like, yeah, this team's not doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going into the weekend. Yeah, we're excited. Dominguez and Wells, they're making their debuts. The Yankees have kind of gone full in that youth movement, trying to see what we got. And of course, they have to make their debuts against Justin Verlander, who for some reason just stays absolutely incredible in his 40s now. So that's going to be a tough challenge for them tonight. But the rest of this month, this entire month of September, it's going to be huge for our off season. It's obviously we're not going to find out everything about these prospects in a month, but if you could go into next season or into the offseason, actually, knowing that you have a center fielder, a left fielder, and potentially a catcher for the future on top of Volpe, Peraza potentially, if you could figure out that bat, Cabrera, same thing. I mean, that's a lot of young talent right there. I mean, they would still have to go bring some guys in, but if they could figure it out, that would be very helpful going into the offseason.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Again, we're looking at a pretty young core of players who could potentially. Again, look at a team like Baltimore and tell me you can't hit on every prospect because they've done it. They've literally done it, and everybody that they brought up and put out there has done it. So, look, we had an expectation of Anthony Volpe, and it's panned out. And you went into this season with an expectation of Aaron Judge, and it's worked out. It's been everybody else that's been a problem. And again, as you're kind of looking at these other guys and start plugging holes in, wouldn't it be great to see Jasson Dominguez in the starting lineup next season alongside Aaron Judge? That would be, a dream scenario for the Yankees. But the problem over the past few years for the Yankees is you hear about all these prospects. There's the constant hype. And then, again, nothing's really developed. And even the guys that get traded away, it's like, whatever happened to that guy?
They never turn into anything.
Whatever happened to that Billy McKinney? And then he's back, and you're like, oh, yeah, nothing good.
The fringe major leaguer, yeah. And I mean, another one, you look at Debbie Garcia. That guy was one of our top-ranked pitching prospects for years. And he came up, he was solid, but they didn't manage him right, sent him back down, and he fell apart. And he was never the same. I think they waived him or released him a month ago, something like that. And I don't know where he is now. But it just goes to show. I mean, going back to 10 years ago, Jesus Montero for Michael Pineda. I mean,
wow, yeah,
that was supposed to be supposed to be our saving grace. And I mean, we traded him, but he didn't turn into anything. So I mean, it's just like they have all this hype around these prospects every year, and for some reason they just don't develop. I mean, Judge has been the only one that I can really remember. And I'm 23, so I'm not that old, but homegrown talent developing into a superstar like that, our captain. I mean, he's been the only one, and it's like you start to question. It's like where are they going wrong? Is it the scouting department? Is it the analytics? Is it Cashman himself? Is it Hal? Like, there's just so many questions you got to answer, and I don't have the answer. I don't think they do either.
No, they don't, and they really do got to get cracking. I don't know what this team can do really to turn it around, other than you'll be discharging money off the books this year, but you still have high salary going forward for till at least 2027. You've got salary issues with this team, so you need these young guys to develop. They have to be. They have to become legit Major League Baseball players. I'll tell you a guy, Thairo Estrada, who's been having a sensational year for the San Francisco Giants. And oddly, I mean, he's been around the league a little bit after he left the Yankees before he finally became a productive baseball player. But he's another good example of someone who came out of the Yankees system who struggled. And he's finally having a really outstanding season. But again, those are so few and far between, guys that the Yankees are putting out. So they've got to do a better job of developing talent. They do need to reassess this entire situation and get the ship righted. But yeah, I think if you're a Yankee fan, this is something you should have been asking for years ago, because the last couple of years, it's been not shocking to me that the Yankees, get to the postseason and don't get too far. And when you look at the way these teams were laid out, they do need to take a look at the analytics department, because I didn't believe it until they've kind of said it in the last couple of days. Like, this was intentional, what they had put together. Whoever thought this was a good idea needs to be fired. Accountability has to happen.
Brian Cashman got rewarded with a brand new contract last year. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that said, we'll keep a tight eye on the Bombers the rest of the way. It'll be curious to see, how these guys play out over the last, and like you said, look, no one's going to do anything where you're like, superstar. And I don't think this is about that, but this is a chance to, and again, why Esteban Florial never gets this chance, but a chance to play Major League Baseball unabridged for a month, be a starter every single day at the major league level. You're going to get that experience. The game's faster, the pitching's better. It takes some adjustment time. This is good for these young guys to get up here, get some time. They're going to be around each other and around Judge and Volpe, like I said. And if that's going to be the core of this team, hopefully going forward, there you go. I think you're putting this team in the, people often forget, but that 1995 wild card team that the Yankees had, do you know who was on that roster? They didn't do anything, and they weren't actually on the postseason roster, but 2 September call-ups that year, Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera. And those two guys have talked about that experience, being in the clubhouse with Paul O'Neill and Tino Martinez. Not Tino wasn't there yet, but Paul O'Neill and well, I guess Donnie Baseball would have been really the highlight guy. But to be around those guys and to be on a legit playoff run, it set the tone for the core four and what was going to happen going forward. And clearly, those guys only knew winning from and playoffs from the onset. And so, not that these Yankees are getting a playoff run, but I think the opportunity to be in a dugout and to spend time every day with Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge and Anthony Volpe, who knows all these guys anyway, I think it'll be good for this team going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, just that experience. I mean, playing in New York it's a different animal. It doesn't matter where in the country. I mean, the Yankee Stadium playing in New York is different. And for example, Jasson Dominguez, he got 6 games in AAA before he got called up. It's really just about getting those reps in, seeing what it feels like being in the city, not even playing baseball games, just the atmosphere, how your lifestyle changes. And I mean, that affects players playing in the cold next year when we start. I mean, a lot of these guys, like I know Peraza last year when he got called up, he'd never played in cold weather baseball. I mean, just adjusting to that alone, that's hard. So I mean, getting used to that, getting reps in now, I'm glad they've finally called up some prospects, give them some run.
Yeah, it's been a great run, Yankee fans. It's been a great run. All great runs have to come to an end. Don't forget about those Yankee teams in the 30s and 40s that won every single championship almost every single year. They too, after like 39 straight winning seasons, finally had a stinker. The baseball gods cannot always be in your favor. And look, I think this might be the best thing that's happened for the Yankees. This idea of just, loading up on older players with spotty attendance records over the past couple of seasons, That's not a winning formula. That's what George Steinbrenner used to do. For all the idiots who were like, well, George Steinbrenner traded Jay Buhner for Ken Phelps. Okay, that's not just a Seinfeld bit. That really happened. He traded Jose Rio and Willie McGee and Fred McGriff. Okay, great players for old aging players. That was what George Steinbrenner did. It worked with Reggie Jackson, and then it never worked again. So stop romanticizing the worst owner in the history of sports, because that's what George Steinbrenner was.
Yeah.
Anybody who would blackmail his starting left fielder is not a good owner.
Yeah, people want to remember the past and remember how fiery George was. Obviously, they must not remember how his personality was. And yeah, I'll catch myself saying the same thing sometimes, just because, I mean, he wanted to win. He didn't want anything but championships every single year, and that culture stuck around. And once Hal took over, I mean, he's more of a business mind. He's not more of a like George was a Yankee fan that owned the team. Hal is a businessman.
Hal Steinbrenner has spent more money on the Yankees every single year he's owned the team than his father did. Every single year. Right? He goes out, he gets Cole, spends $350 million on that. People still aren't happy. Goes out and spends another $160 million, gets you another ace. Not happy with that. Now, again, it's not his fault. Rodon hasn't panned out. Look, it's easy to say that, Hal's cheap. All Hal cares about is making money. You think this guy's making money? This franchise is in the toilet. You ever watch a game? There's nobody even in the seats. Mind you, they sell the tickets, but people aren't actually showing up for the games. That's even worse. That means people are turning down tickets that are already paid for. Okay? But the problem is at Hal Steinbrenner. It might be that Hal Steinbrenner put all of his trust in Brian Cashman. Yeah, bad move. Yeah. But to suggest that Hal Steinbrenner only cares about making money, and I don't buy it, dude. This guy, mind you, this trade deadline, he certainly let us down, but he was clearly already taking stock and didn't want to throw bad money after. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him for that one bit. Look, I just said a moment ago, in the offseason, I don't think there's a quick fix. There certainly wasn't going to be one at the All-Star break. And if there was anything you could look forward to, it was getting Carlos Rodon back. He's been terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, in the offseason when we signed him, I was very excited. I think that was a good move. I think he'll figure it out. He was coming off an injury. He's still trying to figure that out. I'm not worried about that. It was more of the fact that last year we barely scraped by the Guardians in the ALDS, and then we go to the ALCS and we get swept by the Astros. And our problem wasn't the pitching. Our problem in the last few postseasons has not been the pitching. It's been the offense. Every single time, they just stink it up. And we knew we didn't have a left fielder going into this season. Didn't sign anybody. We knew the past few years we didn't have a shortstop. We knew they were waiting for Volpe, but I mean, generational shortstops have been on the market the past few years, and they didn't go get them. And yes, Hal has spent money. He went and brought back Judge. Absolutely should have done that. He went and got Rodon. Great move. Cole, obviously. Giancarlo at the time was a little questionable, but he was coming off the MVP, and exciting stuff. But building that lineup around Judge, he just hasn't been able to do it. I mean, the formula he's been putting together has not worked. And I mean, just every year we go into the postseason. This year, we're not going to the postseason this year, but it's been the offense every year, and they have not done much to fix that.
Sure. And Dom, to your point, if this team were to somehow get into the postseason, the problem will 100% be their inability to score enough runs to win the game. And I think looking at this series with Houston, this is a microcosm of what the Yankees would look like in the postseason, right? So you'll see how the Yankees match up with Houston in Houston, you know. And I think it'll tell you everything you need to know about this season. I honestly do.
Yeah, I've loved what they've done with the pitching the past few years. Matt Blake has been great, pitching coach. He's been awesome. The bullpen and the starting rotation have been our bright spots. You know, they haven't been great, but they've been our bright spots for sure.
If the starting rotation had Frankie Montes, had Luis Severino for and Rodon and Herman for longer stretches of the season, I think the Yankees would be in better shape. I think it's because of how many starts Brito's had to make and how, that's kind of been the problem. Obviously, look, Severino's been terrible. You've just seen him turn it around the last couple of starts. Rodon's pitched better. So it's not like you don't have the talent. It's just that it's been the execution. The rotation has been fine. It hasn't been fine. It's done as well as it can given the shape that it's been in. I'll say that. And it hasn't necessarily been the problem as much as I mentioned. I mean, look, the Yankees have one of the lowest team batting averages in the game. They also are one of the worst teams running the bases. Their defense is middle of the pack. They're not exceptional at anything. They don't hit more home runs than anybody that's kind of been they don't even do that. So it's like, if you look where the Yankees are rated offensively, defensively, fielding, base running, it's like, oh yeah, they should be near the bottom of the standings as well. That all adds up.
Yeah, you're looking at the A's, the Rockies, the White Sox. We're sitting right next to all those teams, and those teams are terrible. But the difference is we're the New York Yankees, and our payroll is almost $300 million, and we're sitting in last place. That's the issue I have. It's
that is the
you've
issue.
You've been given $300 million. Some teams haven't spent that in years, and you can't even. We're in last place. I mean, understandable. We're in a very tough division, but come on.
Dom, to be fair, look at the other team in New York that spent a fortune on payroll. I'll say this till my dying breath, and for anybody who has a foggy recollection, the Yankees didn't start buying up players until 2004, 2005, and that's when the dynasty ended and the team went to crap. The Baltimore Orioles led the American League in payroll in the late 90s. It was Toronto before that, and before that, through the 80s, it was the Kansas City Royals. So this nonsense about big market, small market, that really only started when all these regional networks started forming. So let's cut the BS with all that nonsense. Okay. The Yankees formula for success from the dawn of time. When you look at Lou Gehrig and Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra, Thurman Munson, Don Mattingly, Derek Jeter, Aaron Judge, those are homegrown players. The Yankees have always done a great job of developing their talent. And then from the 70s on, well, and even the 60s, they went and got a guy like Roger Maris to pair off with Mickey Mantle. They went out and signed Reggie Jackson and Catfish Hunter to supplement that. A team that won the series in 77 just got a little bit better, or went to the series in 76 and lost. They reloaded. That's what you do. When you go to the American League Championship Series, as the Yankees did a year ago, and you get swept, you load up. You bring reinforcements. You don't do what the Yankees did and expect a different result. Because to me, Dom, the best case scenario was that this Yankee team, maybe what? They thought they were going to go 6 games with Houston in the American League Championship Series this year because they added another starter. You know, they still weren't going to be good enough. And it stuns me to hear the Yankees kind of admit that this was the game plan. Just to go in with the same team. You got Rodon, we should be fine. Wow. Nope. Couldn't have been any more wrong.
No, and I mean, just again, going back to the offense. I mean, we got swept last year, and it was not because of the pitching. Our pitching was great last year in the postseason. It was the offense, and we had a couple injuries, LeMahieu and Benintendi. Those were our contact guys, and if they were healthy, maybe we win a game or two. It doesn't really change the outcome of that series, and just it's mind-boggling that they couldn't add a single bat. I mean, they added Volpe, I guess, sure, but that was in-house. And I mean, you're putting all those expectations on him. You're leading him off within the first month that he gets called up, and it's like you're expected to be one of the best producers on this team, and you've played a handful of games. So I mean that had to be a big part of his struggle too.
This is my last thought, right? The Yankees are the only thing separating the Red Sox from another last place finish. And now Red Sox fans will tell you, look, we've got 4 championships since 2004, right? Feeling really good about ourselves. You've also got that many last place finishes.
Yeah.
And in years like this one, here's what I've noticed about Red Sox fans. They don't care. You know why? They're not watching. They're not even paying attention at all right now to the Red Sox. Red Sox fans are pathetic and not loyal. Only when the Red Sox are good do they really care and pay attention. The same thing with Patriots fans. You know.
Yeah. Oh,
but,
I know.
The Yankee fans care too much. And the idea that we have to suffer through like a last place losing season is more than we can bear. But again, I just want to remind people of the amazing privilege that you've had in the last 30 years to watch this Yankee team year after year after year put out a really good team. And with the exception of like 2014 to 2016 and this year, that's a very impressive run that the Yankees have put forth. They got to reload. They got to do an actual rebuild here, get young and then start adding pieces. 2024 is probably going to be as rough as 2023, but with young guys, and you'll at least be excited about it. Actually doing a New York Giants preview tonight at 7:00. Make sure people tune in for that. You know, that's a team that last year they basically had to start from scratch, right? I mean, they had the quarterback, they got some pieces, and they're slowly building a thing together, and they had a great deal of success last year. The Giants have built off of what and filled the holes that they had. That's what you need to do. That's how you, and they're young. They were the youngest team in football last year.
Yeah,
the future looks good there.
Defense. Yeah.
Right? That's what this Yankee team's got to do. Get young, and then you supplement the holes that you couldn't develop, and that's how you have a successful franchise and sustained success, which the Giants have not ever had. Ever in their history. And if you don't believe me, look it up. The Giants are a 500 team like 7 out of 10 years of every decade. It's insane. Anyway, Dominic, thank you for coming on the roll call with me. We will be back. We'll finish out this season. We'll follow this team in the development and all off season long. We'll keep you hot stoved with whatever moves the Yankees might make going forward. But I don't know. I don't know that there's a quick fix, Dom, but I suppose Brian Cashman, it looks like, is going to have a chance to dig himself out of the hole he's gotten into. It'll be interesting to see what the Yankees do with that going forward.
Yeah, I think this is his last chance, man. He's got one more chance to turn this team around. He's starting from scratch again next year. We'll see what he could do in the offseason. My expectations are not that high, but I'm excited to watch some young guys this weekend. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. CleverCrestMedia.com/The Roll Call Podcast. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. And we are on Instagram. Make sure you give us a follow, like, comment, all that nonsense that you're supposed to say at the end of the podcast. For Dom Zappone, I'm Joe Aguirre. Thank you so much for checking out this week's Roll Call Podcast. See ya.